It can be very easy to be convinced by the idea that everything in our lives need to be perfectly proportional to one another. And in this video, I'd like to provide a slightly different perspective to show that that may not be the case, that in fact it may actually work better for us if we're able to incorporate an understanding of how things can be providing different weights to our lives and therefore requires different amounts of investment. This idea of work-life balance is obviously a very popular topic, and I think there are people in both camps that say, you know, work to live or live to work, and there's this conflict between the two where they don't really find a middle ground all the time. And this idea that I'm trying to put forward today is actually one that hopefully bridges that gap. It's this idea of work-life harmony or work-life dissonance, trying to find something that works for you as an individual as compared to trying to get a cookie-cutter approach from another individual, another organization, or just another ideology that might not work perfectly with your set of interests or ideals. But what do I mean more specifically by this idea of work-life harmony, work-life dissonance? So fundamentally, it's trying to take the perspective that there are certain things in our lives that we may like to do more than other things. For some, it might be working. For some, it might be relaxing. For others, it might be catching up with friends and indulging a little bit in entertainment, while for others, it could be spending more time in the gym or cooking more food or any number of other arbitrary examples. But the idea is that none of these are necessarily bad. All of them are contributing to our lives to a certain extent, in a certain way. And for each person, that's going to be different. So for one person to come in, let's say, with their framework and tell us that we're working too much, or we're not working enough, or any other number of things, is misguided to the extent to which they don't have the full context of our version of the world, our subjective experience of what is important. And therefore, a lot of the time, their suggestions might not be as accurate as they could be. If we're to think about work-life balance as kind of being a scale of working more or living less, or living more and working less, it's very dichotomous in that nature. It's very black or white. Whereas this idea of work-life harmony, work-life dissonance is more so, does the threads of your life integrate well in a beautiful way that's functional for you? Because at the end of the day, we're always going to be participating in something that either works for us or doesn't. And so we have a responsibility to try to make it work as well as we can for ourselves, whatever that might mean. And for me, in my framework, this stems back to the idea of not being afraid to rest, but also not being afraid to work extra hard, because the only balance we need to seek, the only harmony we need to achieve is the one that works for us, not for anyone else, because we're not living their lives, they're not living our lives. Why would it make sense to put their framework on our system? It doesn't make sense. But another important consideration is not to make our spare time activities our full-time occupation. Now, what do I mean by that? More specifically, there are things that we know we need to be doing, that we should be doing, that we ultimately want to be doing, but they might be a little bit more strenuous or difficult to complete. And in those moments, we might distract ourselves by doing something that's a little bit less important but easier to accomplish. For example, we might know that we need to study for an exam, or we might know that we need to complete some kind of report for work, but we instead decide to, I'm going to install a new operating system on my computer, or I'm going to go cut the grass and learn this new recipe. All of those things are great, but we can't be fooling ourselves into thinking that that should be our priorities. Those things are spare time activities because we need to have done the stuff that we should be doing first. And with all that being said, these are just some ideas that I found to be helpful for me. So I hope they're helpful for you. And if you didn't know already, I've recently launched a server on Discord. It's been great to get a few people in there now, so I'm very excited to kind of fill that out and get some more things going in there. But for now, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for being here, and do more than you think you can.